I was good, you were good.
Come to order, please. We're very fortunate and appreciative this evening. We have Pastor Ross Halberson, Sumra, to deliver our invocation. Thank you, sir.
Will you please stand? Our Father in heaven, the Word declares you as the creator of the universe. You've set in order a motion, and every day the sun rises and the sun sets, and every day is a blessing to live, to work, to contribute to our community, to encourage and to love as family, friends. Father, as our leaders are gathered tonight to discuss matters pertinent to the well-being of this community, give them wisdom. For those who speak, give them clarity. Father, we celebrate the lives and events of several present and those who have gone on. Father, tonight we acknowledge your goodness in every way. Thank you. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Vice Chairman Fisher, lead us in the pledge.
Please remain standing, face the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
Mr. Chair, I do not know of anything other than there may be an item that someone wants to remove from the consent agenda.
All right.
Up to the
All
board.
right. Any proposed changes to the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to take off the consent agenda the issue dealing with the visitor center and the sale of alcoholic beverages.
That would be
E.
tab E.
E.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else? I would entertain a motion to conclude tab F, G, H, I, J, and S.
Need to adopt the agenda first.
I'm sorry.
So move.
Motion to adopt the agenda is presented. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you. And consider a motion to include on consent tab F, G, H, I, J, and S.
Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate, sometimes we have the minutes as part of the consent agenda. Is there a reason why we're not doing that tonight?
Usually we don't put them on the consent agenda if someone was absent.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Was there someone absent at that meeting?
I think so. I think we had 2 members absent.
Consent agenda?
Then move we approve the consent agenda F through J.
Motion to adopt, is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then we'll adopt agenda on consent of F, G, H, I, J, and S. Citizen comments. This is a portion of the meeting where we welcome citizen comments on agenda items only that are not subject to public hearing. Did anyone sign up?
I'll ask. No, sir.
Thank you. Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chair, are you
Yes.
going to do E at all, or what are we doing with E? If
We
we're
are-
not
we are
going to deal with it, we need a motion to
consider it, and we
table.
can do that now, but I was going to wait until we got there.
Okay, that's fine. Just didn't want to forget it.
Okay with everyone? Okay. So Board of Supervisors comments, are there any? Consideration in the minutes of the regular meeting of June 22nd, 2016. Any additions or corrections?
Move for approval as submitted.
Motion to approve is submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. Minutes of our June 22nd, 16 meeting are approved as submitted. Vice Chairman Fisher, could you join me, please? Thank you. Would you all like to join us? On April the 27th, the Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution in memoriam of Richard G. Dick, Chairman of the Board of Supervisors in Frederick County, Virginia, Whereas Richard G. Dick served the citizens of Frederick County, Virginia for 4 years as chairman at large for the Board of Supervisors from January 1st, 1992 through December 31st, 1996. And whereas Richard G. Dick helped promote Frederick County as a business location during his 32 years of service as a member of the Frederick County Industrial Development Authority, now known as the Frederick County Economic Development Authority, where he served as chairman from January 2004 through January 2015. And whereas during his tenure, he held seats on numerous commissions, including chairman of the Winchester-Frederick County Economic Development Commission, chairman of the Lord Fairfax Community College Foundation, member of the State Board for Community Colleges, and a member of the Winchester-Frederick County Joint Judicial Center Committee. And whereas Mr. Dick helped negotiate a voluntary settlement agreement between the City of Winchester and Frederick County, which was instrumental in keeping the Frederick County government offices in downtown Winchester. And whereas Mr. Dick was a tireless worker for all the citizens of Frederick County. And whereas Mr. Dick will be long remembered by those who served with him and the employees of Frederick County government that worked for him as a man who was generous with his time and personified love of community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Frederick County Board of Supervisors extends its deepest sympathy to the family of Richard G. Dick, a true friend of Frederick County. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread across the minutes of the Frederick County Board of Supervisors for all citizens to reflect upon the accomplishments of this citizen legislator, and a true copy of this resolution be presented to his wife and family. Adopted this 27th day of April, 2016.
We are overwhelmed by this, and thank you all so much. Thank the board. This is, you know where his heart was. He loved Frederick County, and he so enjoyed serving on the board and serving the people of Frederick County. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. Thank you all so much. Sergeant Ellinger, would you join us, please? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. The Employee of the Month Award recognizes county employees as an important and valuable resource. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, it's my pleasure to present David Michael Ellinger for consideration as Employee of the Month for July 2016. David serves as a sergeant for the Sheriff's Office. Sergeant Ellinger is being recognized for his efforts to provide necessary equipment to the search and rescue team without the use of county tax dollars. Sergeant Ellington was tasked with equipping the members of the search and rescue team. He enthusiastically undertook this challenge and utilized the Defense Reutilization and Marketing Office program, which allows law enforcement agencies to acquire excess military equipment. Sergeant Ellinger diligently searched the DRMO website, and in the last year has acquired approximately $500,000 worth of equipment for the Sheriff's Office. Now entertain a motion to approve David Michael Ellinger as Employee of the Month for July 2016.
So moved.
Motion is second.
Second.
All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. David Michael Ellinger is hereby recognized as the Frederick County Employee of the Month for July of 2016. The Board of Supervisors extends its gratitude to Sergeant Ellinger and his outstanding performance and dedicated service and wishes him continued success in future endeavors. Congratulations and thank you very much. So you. That brings us to tab C, committee appointments. Extension Leadership Council, Stonewall.
I will have someone for that position at next month's meeting.
Thank you. Northwestern Community Services Board. Do we have anyone?
I've been working on that, and I did have a very good prospect for that, but their family commitments, they felt like they just couldn't do it at this time, so I'm still working.
Thank you. Historic Resources Advisory Board, we'll wait on that one. Parks and Recreation Member at Large. Anyone have anyone?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the Parks and Recreation would also like input from you, and they've also asked for the possibility that they could just do some preliminary interviewing of candidates who may have an interest in Parks and Rec, and then forward those recommendations to you.
Good, thank you, sir. Social Services Board, Redbud.
We're working on that. We've done some interviewing. I hope to have somebody next month.
Thank you, sir. Conservation Easement Authority, County Representative. Has anyone talked with Mr. Lodge?
I've tried to call and been unsuccessful so far, but I'll continue to work on that.
Continue?
Yeah.
Okay. Shawnee Land District Advisory Committee.
I have not talked to Mr. Stevens, but I will contact him. Have it ready for next meeting?
Thank you, sir. Frederick Winchester Service Authority, Frederick County Representative.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have talked with Dr. Cleland, and he is willing to serve again, and so I would so move.
So we have a motion
Second to that motion.
to reappoint Dr. Cleland. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no. Dr. Ned M. Cleland, reappointed. All right. So request for commissioner for refunds.
Yes, sir. We have 3 items for the board's consideration. Request from the Commissioner of Revenue for refunds, all of which have been reviewed by the county attorney and require the board to act and appropriate funds accordingly. The first one is a refund of $6,308.37 for personal property taxes and vehicle license fees for 2013 through 2016 in the name of General Motors LLC. The refund is as a result of proration of vehicle personal property taxes and license fees financed by General Motors LLC, but either sold or moved from our locality. So I need the board to approve that and also authorize a supplemental appropriation in that amount.
Appropriation. How would the board like to handle this one?
I would make a motion for approval for $6,308.37 and the corresponding supplemental appropriation.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman.
Second. Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven votes aye. Next, Walmart?
The second one is for Walmart in the amount of $3,811.97 for business equipment taxes for 2016 in the name of Walmart Stores East LP, Walmart Supercenter 3344 is paid for the first half billing. It's a result of the company adjusting the filing for 2016 on their business equipment.
I make a motion for approval and the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $3,811.97.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye and the motion carries.
And the final one, Mr. Chair, is for proration of personal property taxes due to moving out to Andre Godinez, Godinez. I don't know how to pronounce it, in the amount of $2,978.09 for personal property taxes for the second half of 2015 and the first half of 2016.
I make a motion for approval and a corresponding supplemental appropriation in the amount of $2,978.09.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries. Thank you. That will bring us to consideration of item 5 under county officials as tab E. Do you want to introduce this one, Ms. Garten?
Certainly. We received a request from the joint tourism office that we share with the city of Winchester to pass a resolution supporting their application for an alcoholic beverage control license so that they can sell at our visitor center locally produced beers and wines, not to be consumed on site, but to be just sold in their gift shop. The city of Winchester, I believe, approved this item last night, and the county had been asked to also approve it since it's a joint operation. And so you have a resolution in your packet to support that application for an ABC license.
Thank you. How does the board want to handle this request?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Dunn?
I had sent an email to the board members saying that I had some opposition to this, that I'd like to offer a substitute motion. Mr. Hesse was not here because of a funeral, family funeral, indicated, I believe, he was in favor of this. So, and Mr. Fisher, I believe, has discussed this as well. So I'll defer to either a postponement, if that's what the board wants to do, until Mr. Hesse can return, or I'll be glad to make a substitute motion and see where that goes. So I'll leave it to the board on which avenue they'd like me to proceed.
Other comments?
Is there a time frame in which we need to pass this resolution? In other words, if we defer it to next month, will that be too late?
No, I spoke to the executive director today who's out of town and can't be at the meeting tonight. And he said there wasn't any particular rush. They would like to get the license before the fall, visitor season. And he can be at the next board meeting on August the 10th if the board so wishes to push it to that date.
And Winchester, had they passed a resolution?
I think last night.
My understanding is that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So if,
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
I also spoke with him today, and he was in transit. Mr. Kearns was in transit, the tourism director, and he was okay if we decided we wanted to table it, but the city council did approve it last night. And a couple questions I had for him were, apparently there were issues that from I think from Mr. Dunn, that localities in proximity to us didn't allow it, but there are other localities that do allow it. I had asked Mr. Kearns, and I think that was Bath County that he had indicated it's a fairly new concept to promote local products of our community. So the council did not have any issues. They wanted to know about the, he said they asked the question as to the control of the alcohol once the facility is locked up at night, and apparently it is locked up and under lock and key. That was an issue that was apparently raised last night, but they had the blessing from Dr. Fitzsimmons at Shenandoah to allow it at the visitor center. So I share that with you. That was the conversation that we had today. He did say he could be at the August 10th meeting, though, if we decided we wanted to table it till next month.
Comments? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I think the email that had the letter from Mr. Kearns really answered a lot of those questions for me, as far as, with the university and it's off-type sales, plus that the state is permitting this now. So it answered all the questions for me. If you want to postpone it, that's fine, but for me, I just assume we could go ahead and act on it. I'm in favor of seeing this go through, is where I am at this point.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Supervisor Dunn?
I can go and make my substitute motion. If there's a second, then, we can decide whether we want to postpone or not. If there's not a second, we'll go, then Mr. Fisher will have his opportunity to have a vote tonight, if that's amenable to you.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. In that case, I'd like to make a substitute motion. And I'd like to make a comment beforehand. So I realize that local wine and beer-making facilities are local businesses and would support helping these businesses in a different manner. The Visitor Center of Old Town Alexandria and Loudoun County and Leesburg do not sell alcohol, even though they are nearby grape growers. Washington, D.C. Visitor Center also does not sell alcohol. I'm not comfortable with selling alcohol in a visitor center, but would support the advertisement of local businesses and where to buy the products. Therefore, I will offer a substitute motion as follows. Resolution to authorize the Executive Director of the Winchester-Frederick County Tourism Office to list the names and addresses with the consent of each business that so desires of locally produced beer and wine businesses in the Winchester-Frederick County, in the Winchester-Frederick County Visitor Center gift shop. The Visitor Center will also provide the names and addresses of local stores in which to purchase these local beverages to any visitor who asks. Local stores can contact the Visitor Center to have their names added to the list of stores providing these beverages.
Heard the motion, is there a second? Second, anyone? I'm afraid the motion dies for lack of a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
How would the board like to handle this request?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for approval of this resolution as submitted.
Motion to approve as submitted, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And second, discussion?
Mr. Chairman, yes, one thing, I appreciate Mr. Dunn's wanting to delve into this a little closer, but I'm concerned that if we pass a different resolution than the city, then the city has to go back and reconsider their resolution because the two won't dovetail. So, and I really, as Supervisor Fisher has pointed out, all my questions have been answered, and I don't think it's a bad concept. It may be new, but I think that it does have promise, and so I'm willing to support it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Supervisor Dunn.
In some surrounding counties, one of the reasons that they do not sell alcohol is that they offer opportunities to go visit the local wineries, to go visit where the product is made, and so that drives business to those communities. Just making that as a comment.
Thanks, sir. Further discussion?
No, the only other comment that Mr. Kearns made, that if we did implement a policy like that and there were issues with this, it's not something that's cut in stone that we couldn't retract.
Okay. Anyone else? Motion is second to authorize or to adopt the resolution as presented. Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
No.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Nay.
Chairman votes aye and the motion carries. That will bring us to the Human Resources Committee report. Is there one?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hess, who's chairman of our committee, is not here. We don't have anything to report at this time.
Thank you, sir. Nordis Committee report.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Dunn.
we have two revisions on code and ordinances. And give me a second, please.
Surely.
Hang on a second, Mr. Chairman. Where's page one?
Good.
I am missing a first page. Okay. The Code and Ordinance Committee met, and we had a discussion on cameras for for school buses. There have been a number of situations in which drivers have gone by and passed school buses when the red lights have been flashing. Over 200 violations on one route alone. The current bus drivers have to go and record the license plate and then report that license plate, and they have to go to court to go and issue those items. This ordinance would go and allow for a red light camera on the bus to record the license plates, to go and issue a summons through the mail that will be approved by the sheriff for a fine of up to $250. If the person does not show up, then there will be a regular summons issued. And this is designed to try to help and protect the safety of school children. Therefore, I'd like to make the following proposal. It's a proposed amendment to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 158, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 5, School Buses, Section 158-19, Passing Stop School Buses, Penalty. Prima facie evidence to add this section to authorize the use of a video monitoring system to record and enforce violation of Code of Virginia 46.2-859, passing a stopped school bus. The committee would recommend that the board approve this and hold a public hearing.
Heard the motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second, send forward for public hearing. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. Next, Supervisor Dunn.
The second proposal is to give the county administrator the flexibility to add monetary bonuses to employees that do an outstanding job. Therefore, I'd make the following proposal. A proposed amendment to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 19, Personnel Policies, Section 19-1, Employee Recognition Program, to add this section to authorize the payment of monetary bonuses to officers and employees. The committee was favorable to this request and is forwarding it to the board for a public hearing.
Heard the motion, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
ma'am.
could I clarify?
Please.
The ordinance amendment would allow bonuses to all county employees, but the county administrator can't give a bonus to the county administrator or the county attorney. The board has to do that, so just to clarify.
Okay.
I can't give myself a bonus. Daggone.
Duly noted. Sorry.
So noted, Madam Administrator.
So a motion is second, is there further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a question. What types of actions or performance would a person have to provide to be eligible for a bonus, and how large could a bonus be?
Let me ask that question kind of in a roundabout, answer that in a roundabout way. First of all, there has to be a local ordinance in place before you can do this. So this action is to get the board to hold a public hearing to pass the ordinance. Then we would develop some kind of a policy that says, here are the circumstances under which, and here's, here are the guidelines. We don't have that developed because we don't have the ability to do it at this point. So there would be a monetary limit. It would be subject to the availability of funds in the budget. It would be depending on certain kinds of circumstances, like a one-time notable thing that an employee did. It wouldn't be an ongoing thing.
I just thought it might be helpful, because if you send it to public hearing, if I were to come to a public hearing, I want to know those kinds of parameters. In other words, why would we give one? How much would we give? What's the maximum? Before I could say, yes, I'm in favor of this, or no, I'm not in favor of this. So it's kind of like, to me, it should be reversed. We should have a generalized packet of information saying, these are what we're thinking about, and this is what we'd like to put the amendment in place to do. Just my thought.
Mr. Lofton?
Yes.
I believe Mrs. Garten can add to this. I believe there was a maximum of 3 or 4% that was at the administrator's discretion. It was not going to be across the board, but it was for exceptional service and exceptional circumstances. And the purpose was to give her this flexibility to make those decisions.
I understand that may be the generalized thought, but I'm looking for more specifics. Not in detail, because like I say, it's just going to go to a public hearing, but I'd rather have a little more meat to this than what I have.
Madam Administrator, in the conversation that we had in HR, I thought you had put a cap on that. Am I correct or am I incorrect?
I don't believe we had a cap, but we would, once we develop the guidelines. I mean, it wouldn't be open-ended, obviously. You'd never give me permission to do that.
Okay. Mr. Lofton?
Well, we might.
Mr. Lofton?
Supervisor Dunn.
We could either go forward with a public hearing and make these revisions prior to that, or we can go and postpone this and see if the administrator can write some language that is satisfactory, and then go forward. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we got a motion and a second on the floor, right?
Our motion, I didn't hear second. It's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. I think the committee would like to know whether the board wants them to move forward and develop criteria and continue the discussion or not. And I understand your request and your desire as well. So let's see if we can find a path.
I mean, maybe the simplest thing to say is you holding a public hearing and hearing whatever the public has to say, if you pass the ordinance, I can promise you that I wouldn't implement a bonus program without having at least shared what I'm thinking with the board. I mean, I just wouldn't do it. So I might have the legal authority to do it, but morally, I would not do it. And I'm the only one who can do it, so. I mean, you have my word on that. But if you need me to try to develop some ideas before you consider the ordinance, I guess we can do it that way.
That would be my,
Comments? Supervisor Slaughter?
I would concur with Supervisor Lofton in that, I guess my thought process is that I would think that we would expect exemplary performance from our employees, and we would get that. So I'm having a little trouble with a bonus program when I don't really understand all the particulars on it. So I would concur with, it would be nice to understand what it is we're actually trying to accomplish before we go to public hearing.
Supervisor Lofton?
and I would agree, because to me, we give out merit increases, and based upon your performance is generally what your merit is based on. And so I'd like to see what it is that would go above and beyond what a nice merit increase would provide, because that's, once you get the merit increase, that's with your salary the rest of your term here with the county, whereas a bonus, as the county administrator has pointed out, is one time. So I'd like to see what kind of actions or performance you would have to have, and actually to get a bonus that wouldn't benefit you more than a nice merit increase.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with that also. I've never been a proponent of bonuses. You will have to win me over on this one for me to vote yes on it. If we want to take some time and look at it, certainly we'll approach it with an open heart and take a look at it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I believe this came from both Human Resources and from Code and Ordinance. So we could have a joint committee meeting to hash out details, and then come back to the board if that's a better approach.
Say again.
So I hear clear consensus that the board would like to see more information before we move forward.
Sure.
Do we need to do anything other than share that thought?
Mr. Chairman,
Comfortable with that, sir?
I'm comfortable with that. My question to you is, does it then go back to both Human Resources and to Code and Ordinance, to a joint committee, a meeting of both on a one-time basis?
Most ordinance gets reviewed by them.
So you'd have to have both Human Resources and Code and Ordinance review this again?
We'd have to ask Human Resources their view on that one.
Okay,
I would think they'd like to be involved. I think it would be healthy for them to be involved.
all right,
So,
okay.
we good?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you all.
So we're sending it back to HR once we have a program kind of worked up?
And more information,
Okay.
and then the board would
Okay.
try to help you with direction, I think.
And Mr. Chair, could I ask you please to go back to the HR committee report, because there were two items on there, one of which didn't need action, but well, you already acted on it. It was the
We
employee
did
of the
that,
month.
I think on both of them. This was the second one, correct?
That's from the Code and Ordinance Committee, but the HR committee had an action that needed to be acted on,
Okay. So let's go there.
which is page,
So, Madam Administrator, if you can defer for 1 second. The third item on the code and ordinance, Mr. Chairman, was that we did have a review of the committee charter. There were no changes. That was required by law.
Apologize.
Madam Administrator, floor is yours.
So are we good?
Under item K, the HR committee report, the first item was the employee of the month, which you did, and the second item was a HR policy revision that requires the board to act, because it's a
Yeah,
personnel
okay.
policy
All right.
revision.
Correct.
So who wants to introduce this one?
I can generally explain it. When we changed the work schedule for the Fire and Rescue Department, it also changes the basis for accrual of leave, so it's a change in the personnel policy to adjust that structure proportionately to the change in the hours.
Okay. So how would the board like to handle this one?
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of that HR policy revision, section 8.3.
Motion to approve the change. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Anyone? Voice vote okay?
This is
All those
policy.
in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry we missed it. Okay. Finance Committee report. Supervisor Slaughter.
All right. The Finance Committee meeting was held on the first floor room of 107 North Kent Street on July 20th. Items number 1, 2, and 4 were approved on consent agenda and required no local funds, and the Finance Committee, as I said, recommended approval, so I would so move.
Motion to approve 1, 2, and 4 on consent. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
Item number 3 on the agenda was the EDA Executive Director requested a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $16,800, would represent compensation to the EDA Board. No local funds required, but we do need to make a supplemental appropriation so the Finance Director can issue W-2s. And I would so move.
So motion to approve adding the supplemental. Is there a second?
Aye. Second.
Second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Supervisor Lofton.
As appointed out of the Finance Committee, I am a member of the Economic Development Authority, but I will not be receiving this supplement, so I will be voting on this issue.
Okay. You're abstaining on this one, right?
No, I will be voting.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got it. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Dunn.
from what I understand, this is simply going to authorize EDA to go and spend the money. The money's going to come back to the state, so there's no cost to the county.
That is
Is
correct.
that correct, Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You know, these will be coming out of funds that the EDA already has within their coffers, so to speak.
Simply authorizes the expenditure of those funds.
Okay. Motion is second to approve. Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
Okay, that brings us to item number 5. The Public Works Director requested a general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $82,000. The amount represented funds needed for purchase of 3 mid-size pickup trucks. The committee recommended approval. There has been some further discussion with committee members about this issue, and there was a little bit of misunderstanding in that the thought was that these funds would come from the capital appropriation that was done earlier in the budget cycle. What I would like to recommend to the committee is that we review this, since we're only 27 days into a new budget cycle, and have it sent back to the Finance Committee in 90 days, once our Finance Director knows what our fund balance and all the financial entries would be made. And the other piece of that is, I know that I spoke with Mrs. Garden to see if this money could come out of the contingency fund, and I think after 90 days, she certainly would have a better sense of where we are with with where we're going for the new fiscal year. So that would be my recommendation, is that this request be sent back to finance and reviewed in 90 days.
The motion is to send back to finance for review in 90 days. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
In favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Supervisor Slaughter.
Okay, that takes us to item number 6, which is the Director of Public Works requesting a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $35,000. This amount represents unspent fiscal year 2016 funds to be used for site testing to relocate the Clearbrook Citizens Convenience Site. The committee recommends that, and again, these are carry-forward funds from fiscal year 2016. So the committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
Okay, item number 7, the Victim Witness Director request a general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $100,173. This request is an increase in grant funds for fiscal year 2017. These are state funds, and no local funds, of course, are required. The committee recommends approval, and I would so move.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
Item number 8, the Fire and Rescue Chief requests a FY 2016 EMS Recovery Fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $324,465. This amount represents funds needed for fourth quarter mileage and third quarter revenue recovery payments. No local funds are required, and the committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
Item number 9, the Transportation Director requested a fiscal year 2017 Development Project Fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $12,751,872. This amount represents an executed revenue sharing agreement for the I-81 Bridge Tevis Roundabout Airport Road project. The project will be shared by VDOT and R150 SPE LLC. No local funds are required. This item will require a public hearing, and the committee recommends advertising for a public hearing, and I would so move.
Motion to send forward for public hearings, or second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Supervisor Slaughter.
Item number 10, the Parks and Recreation Committee requests the donations received in fiscal year 16 for the Play Fund in the amount of $2,877.76 be reserved, subject to future appropriation. This amount represents the collection of $3,595 reduced by the financial assistance provided during fiscal year 2016 in the amount of $717.24. No local funds are required. These are actually contributions, and it's for assistance for various programs for students. The committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
Recommendation to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries.
Item number 11, Greenwood Volunteer Fire and Rescue requested fiscal year 2017 general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $37,771. This amount represents proffer funds specific to Greenwood to assist with the purchase of a ladder truck. No local funds are required. In your packet, of course, the attached proffer policy was included. The committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
Move to approve, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Dunn.
just to note, these proffers were specific for Greenwood, so that this money is being used at the discretion of Greenwood for that area. It's not additional monies. We've just gone through 11. We're about to go through a 12th one. Many of these items are carry-forward items, or they were information that was passed after July 1st. So there's a series of supplemental appropriations for FY17, but they're simply bookkeeping to move things from last year to this year.
Further discussion? Anyone? Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Chair votes aye and the motion carries.
Okay, and the last item requiring board action is the county administrator request of fiscal year 2017 general fund supplemental appropriation in the amount of $2,366,365. This amount represents the unspent fiscal year 2016 capital contingency funds. Of the $3 million that we approved, this is the amount that is still outstanding, that we obviously have purchase orders and various things on. The committee recommended approval, and I would so move.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, is there any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Chair votes aye and the motion carries.
Lastly, I would just like to, we need to offer recognition to the Finance Department for the acceptance of the Government Finance Officers Association Award for outstanding achievement in preparing the popular annual financial reporting, more commonly known for us as the PAFR. This is the 9th consecutive year that Frederick County has received this recognition of achievement, and I want to make sure that everyone is aware of all the hard work that they do. Also, with the PAFR, there are only 4 or 5 localities that receive this award in the Commonwealth, so I think it speaks a great deal to the excellence and achievement and the fine work that our finance department does. Also, they did receive the award for the CAFR, and this is the 30th consecutive year that Frederick County has received this award, but it is due to all the hard work and that this department does, and they definitely need to be recognized for it. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you. Outstanding achievement for 30 years consecutively. It's well done. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, that'll bring us to the public hearing. Conditional use permit 03-16 for Verizon Wireless Commercial Telecommunications Facility. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this telecommunications tower is located at 143 Greenwood Road. It's in the Redbud Magisterial District. Property is currently zoned RA, rural areas. Its current land use is a church. The adjoining property of zoning and the uses surrounding of this property are to the north as B2, and to the south, east, and west, RP, residential performance, and their use is residential. The B2 piece of property used to be the Indian Motorcycle Shop there on Route 7. If I could turn your attention to the map on your left to give you a better idea where this proposed use is going to be. This is at the corner of Greenwood Road and Route 7 or Berryville Pike. This is the kind of giving you an idea, or give the board an idea of approximate area, the location of this 150-foot commercial telecommunication tower is. As you can see, the property is sort of outlined in black. There's a thought there, if you can make it out, is where the location of the telecommunication tower will be located. Also, Mr. Chairman, I know in your package you did get a schematic, or I should say a site plan. I also have that on screen if there's any questions toward the end there, and if you want to ask the applicant any questions. The Frederick County zoning ordinance, as we're all aware of, allows for commercial telecommunications facilities in our RA rural area zoning districts with an approved conditional use permit. This proposed 150-foot monopole type communication facility will be located on a 22-acre parcel. And again, that's a church right now that's it's RA. It also, the RA property is located within our urban development area in our sewer water service area as identified, in our comprehensive policy plan. And it's also within our Cincinnati Road, Eastern Frederick area plan. These plans identify this area to stay residential in character, but however, the proposed site is located within the vicinity of 3rd Winchester Battle. Also in your packet, or I should say your agenda, you've got a letter from the HRB who reviewed this application. The applicant is also seeking a waiver to reduce setbacks that are set forth in our zoning ordinance. Should this waiver be granted, it would be a 60-foot setback reduction. And basically, what the zoning ordinance requires in layman's terms, if you go higher than the average height or the height of the zoning district something's going to be located in, we call it a 1-for-1. For every foot you go up, you have to go a foot out. So in layman's terms, that's what they're looking for. That is also part of the package that was given to you and also part of your resolution should you approve this conditional use permit. The current, and this is at your left, shows where the location of the telecommunication tower is going to be. And again, in this zoning district, a 50-foot is your setback. So that's where we get to the height, how it's broken out, as you see in your application, and what the applicant is applying for. And again, this is where it's going to be located, approximately, again, when the site plan comes in on the church property. Should the Board of Supervisors find this use to be appropriate, the Planning Commission at their June 15th, 2016 meeting approved this conditional use permit and the waiver with the following conditions to be attached. Number 1, all review agency comments should be complied with at all times. Number 2, the tires should be available for co-locating personal wireless service providers. Number 3, a minor site plan shall be submitted and approved by Frederick County. Number 4, the tires should be removed by the applicant or the property owner within 12 months of abandonment of the operation. Number 5, in event the telecommunication tower is not erected within 12 months, the approval of this conditional use permit will be deemed invalid. And number 6, any expansion or modification of this use would require a new conditional use permit. For the record, there are folks here from the telecommunication company can answer any of your questions on not only what we call the RF or wooded serving area and the general site. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Chairman? Anyone? Mr. Supervisor Slaughter.
I had one question in reading the letter from the Winchester Regional Airport from Mrs. Manuel, and I didn't see where there was a response back. Were the FAA requirements met as far as the height and the lighting and so forth?
Yeah, yes, Ms. Slaughter, with the airport, we always require lighting on our towers as part of any of the conditional use permit. I know you've been on the board, have seen them come through. The FAA requirement goes to height. This is under that height for putting the tower on, but it will be lighted. To answer your question, Mr. Ward.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions? Supervisor Lofton.
Mr. Chair, in looking at the waiver request and the diagrams with this application, it appears that the nearest structure is about 250 feet away. Is that correct? But this waiver is being requested because the property line isn't that far away?
That is correct.
And so, okay, I guess that was my question. Yeah.
Other questions for Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions. I walked this property today, so I know where the site's going to be. Question number 1 is, if for whatever reason that tower collapses, the only thing that's close to it is Route 7 and the buildings at the bottom of the hill. The question is, with what certainty do you have that if that tower collapses, it is not going to go and hit those buildings? I've been told by engineers that it won't, but I'd like to hear from your viewpoint on whether a tower, under any circumstances, would collapse and cause damage to either Route 7 or to the buildings that are underneath it.
I was waiting for your second question, but you want to answer the first one first, Mr. Dunn? Yeah. And I'm going to definitely let the applicant answer more. What we usually required is that, and I think there's a letter, as you pointed out in your package, from the engineer seals it, that it'll, if the tower would collapse, it'll collapse upon itself.
So you're saying it's going to collapse in this fashion as opposed to this fashion?
That's what they're designed to do, yes, sir.
I understand the word they're designed to do. I read that carefully.
Yes, sir.
My question is, will it do so? And I'm not being a hard-nosed, but I'm just saying that if I were on the receiving end of that, it would not be a pleasant experience.
Yes, sir, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Again, I'm not a PE, I'm going with the PE says, is what we normally say. So, yes, sir, that's,
All right?
I'll take it.
Second question. In the packet, it said that the nearby residents were notified. Do you know if they were or not?
Yes, sir, the adjoining letters went to the adjoining property owners.
So there's probably 40 or 50 adjoining,
Yeah, there was quite a few, yes, sir.
so they all received a letter.
Yes, sir. And also, the property, as you know, is posted.
Okay. And the third item is that I believe that the current code requires simply a sign or notice saying that, and that was met. But going forward, Mr. Chairman, I might want to suggest that there be multiple signs, because if I were living in that area, that sign is, in my opinion, not distinguishable. You can drive by at 35 miles an hour, you can't see it, you don't know there's a public zoning going on. And so if you want to let all parties know what's occurring, I think it's more helpful to have multiple signs so that the average person will see it, as opposed to only 1 out of 100 to see it.
Yes, Mr. Dunn, and staff will make sure that happens in the future.
No, and so if it requires a change in code, we can do that? Or
No,
I can suggest that, but-
actually, our code requires you put signs up. I'll say this, if we have a rezoning on a bigger piece of property, you're correct, sir. If you've gone to visit properties, you'll see multi-signs. Staff will make sure that if it's a bigger property on a main road like Greenwood was where the speed limit, we could put some more signs
Just to
on.
put that into perspective, I've gone down Greenwood in the last week 3 or 4 times, and I never saw the sign. So I live there, I'm going there, and the thing that caught my attention was today, when I was reading this, it said there had to be a sign. So I went out to look for the sign. I had to look for that sign.
Sir.
And so if I'm having to look for it, then it's not doing its job. So I would just suggest that in the future, even if it's a smaller project such as this one, you have enough signage there. That same church has a number of signs saying there's a summer camp.
Yes, sir.
5 or 6 signs, and you go by and you see that. So I'm just going to suggest the same type of signage.
Yes, sir,
you.
we will take that.
Other questions, Mr. Chairman? Anyone? Thank you, sir.
You, sir.
Anything the applicants would like to add?
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Tracy Thiemak. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Verizon. I also have Mike Fisher, who is an RF engineer, if you had specific RF engineering questions about the prop maps that were included in your packet, and also Steve Muscarella from SCE, who is the site acquisition specialist who's followed this application from the beginning. I did want to address Supervisor's done questions about the self-collapsing tower. First and foremost, collapses like that are extremely rare. Secondly, not only is the tower designed to collapse, they call it a self-collapsing tower, to collapse on itself, but that's it. We say that there's a 50-foot radius where the collapse zone would be, but they're not designed to collapse and then fall over. They're designed to collapse on themselves, and that's it, to stay actually standing up. They have a break point in the middle so that we get that safety buffer. Also, just an exact number, there were 37 adjoining property owners notified by letter in addition to the signs, and all of those went out. So I'm basically here, I don't want to be too redundant. Staff gave a pretty comprehensive report, and we're in concurrence with all of the conditions. So I'm here, as well as Mike and Steve, to answer any additional questions you all may have.
Any questions of applicants?
My question to you is going to be a very simple one, and that is the homes underneath and Route 7, from your engineering report, that is going to be safe to those residents,
Yes.
okay?
Anyone else? Supervisor Lofton?
Yes, to your RF point there, I'm assuming, I want you to assure me, that the reason for this tower is that there is a need for more coverage, more speed, more, what is it that we're looking forward to accomplish with this?
The broad answer is there's a need for everything. Primarily, there's a greater need for data. Data demand is driving the need for more of these macro sites. I can assure you that Verizon doesn't want to build a new tower if they don't absolutely have to. If there's an opportunity to co-locate and not invest the substantial sum to put up a new tower. They do have several towers in the vicinity. Those are also shown on the propagation maps, but they do not affect this coverage area. There are other carriers potentially interested, Shentel being one of them. So there is when we look at this search ring, we make sure that there's no other opportunities for a simpler design for small cell or something that could fill the gap in coverage, but it's not doing it. Primarily, it is data-driven. The capacities of the surrounding sites are overloaded, and we're seeing people that are emailing and sending pictures and texts more than even voice calls. So it is primarily the data demand that's driving the need for macro sites like the one here.
So, thank you. It's user demand for more data.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Verizon is hearing from their customer base that there's a data drive here.
And within this particular area.
Absolutely.
Mr. Lofton?
Right on.
In this area, you go from 4 bars to 2. I spoke to users in that area, and the layout of the land is such that when you're coming off 81 along Route 7, there's a noticeable drop for Verizon users. For other carriers, there may not be, but at least for Verizon users, it's significant drop calls, 4 bars to 1, 4 bars to 2, et cetera. And that's the driver behind this.
Thank you.
Other questions? The applicant, anyone? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning this application? Anyone at all? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I believe this is read by.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go that based upon the comments made by the applicant on public safety and for the need for additional coverage in this area, and recognizing that it will serve a greater community, I'd like to go and move for approval of permit number 03-16 for Verizon Wireless Commercial Telecommunication Facility to build such a tower as outlined in our agenda here this afternoon.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Is there any further discussion? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells is not with us. Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye and the motion carries. Will bring us to conditional use permit number 05-16 for Edwin Elvira submitted for a retail nursery landscape store. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Tyler Klein. I'm a new addition to the Department of Planning and Development, and I'm here before you this evening with conditional use permit 05-16 for Edwin Elvira. The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit for a retail nursery and landscaping store located at 1590 Fairfax Pike in White Post, Virginia. This is located in the Opequon Magisterial District, and it is presently zoned RA, or rural area. The current land use of the site is an existing residence, and it's also the former location of the Hal Bay Nursery. And again, the applicant is proposing a retail or wholesale nursery with greenhouses and landscaping displays. Here is your site. It's immediately south of Fairfax Pike with a single access driveway. It's to the west of Route 522. The site consists of an existing farmhouse, existing outbuildings that the applicant intends to use for storage, an existing greenhouse, and existing gravel parking. The location of this proposed retail nursery and landscaping is in a part of the county that is planned for future mixed-use commercial office as part of the Route 277 triangle and described in the 2030 Comprehensive Plan and Southern Frederick Area Plan, respectively. The zoning ordinance allows for wholesaling or retailing of nursery stock and related products in the RA district through a conditional use permit. The proposed use will again take place within the existing structures, including a farmhouse, which the applicant intends to use as a rental residence, various outbuildings that will be used for office space, storage of material and vehicles, and an existing greenhouse on the 10.2-acre site. This use is generally compatible with the surrounding agricultural and rural uses in the vicinity of the site. And the site was previously occupied by the Hal Bay Nursery. Although this site has been vacated by the nursery for more than a year and thus requiring a new conditional use permit to reestablish retail nursery use. Should the Board of Supervisors find this use to be appropriate, the Planning Commission has recommended the following conditions: that all agency comments shall be complied with at all times, that an engineered site plan shall be submitted to and approved by Frederick County, and all improvements completed prior to the establishment of the use, that the applicant will be permitted one non-illuminated freestanding monument business sign that is no more than 5 feet tall and no greater than 50 square feet in area. That the hours of operation shall be limited to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week with seasonal variation. The site shall have no more than 4 employees, and that any expansion or change in the use would require a new conditional use permit to go through the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. The Planning Commission again recommended approval of this permit application at their July 6, 2016 meeting, and staff is seeking a decision by the Board of Supervisors on this conditional use permit. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Klein, anyone? Supervisor Lofton.
Maybe the applicant can answer better, but I noticed that we have a maximum of 4 employees on the site. If this actually is a viable operation, there's 4 employees going to be enough to operate this operation?
The limitation on the employees is based on the assessment by the health department of the sewer and water system on the site. The applicant does intend to use the residence for the employees, so they would be the employees living and also working on site.
Okay.
And the applicant can speak to that more as well.
Okay, I guess that would be, well, when the applicant is ready, I'd like to ask him that question.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Klein, anyone? Thank you, sir. Is there anything you'd like to add, sir? Would you be willing to answer Mr. Lofton's question?
Yes.
Would you come forward, please, sir?
I just want to know, Mr. Alvaro, that you're comfortable that 4 employees maximum is going to help you make this operation successful?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
You're very comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know then. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Mr. Alvaro? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning this application? Anyone at all? Yes, ma'am. Would you come forward, please? And share your name and magisterial district with us, please? If you could to the microphone, and then everyone can hear.
Rosella Fansler.
Yes, ma'am.
I live right behind them. I understand there's supposed to be a store built. I'd like to know how big it's supposed to be.
Store.
Okay, we'll see if he'd like to answer the question for you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Anyone? And we'll close the public comment person. Mr. Klein?
To clarify the public comment, the applicant does not intend to build any new buildings on site. They will be utilizing the existing structures. Again, that consists of a 2-story farmhouse residence, which the applicant will rent out to an employee, and several outbuildings, one of which will be used for an office, a few of which will be used for landscaping equipment and storage, and an existing greenhouse, which the applicant intends to use for growing of retail nursery stock on the site. They will also be installing hardscaping displays close to Route 277, similar to what you see at like Horton's Nursery. But again, they're not planning to construct any new buildings on the site at this time.
Thank you, sir. Does that answer your question, Ms. Spencer? And I'm confident Mr. Alvaro would be happy to, and Mr. Klein would as well if something comes up. You let us know. All right, I think this is O'Peckham.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the recommendation or the conditional use permit number 5-16 from Edward Alvaro as presented by the staff.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Is there any further discussion? Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries. That will bring us to rezoning number 04-16. Ms. Perkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is an application to rezone a total of 13.9 acres of land from the M1 Light Industrial District to the B2, which is your Business General District, and the B3 Industrial Transition District with proffers. Now, the properties are located on the southeastern side of Martinsburg Pike and the southern side of Snowden Bridge Boulevard. The properties are located within the sewer water service area and are within the limits of the Northeast Land Use Plan of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan. If I can direct your attention to the screen on your left, the subject properties are outlined in black. As you can see, everything in that area is shaded blue. That's the existing M1 zoning. Now, the comprehensive plan identifies these properties with an industrial land use designation, which is consistent with the current zoning. Now, in general, the proposed commercial land use that is being requested is inconsistent with the current land use supported by the comprehensive plan. However, considering the visibility of the site, its location on Martinsburg Pike and 81, and the amount of commercial land that is in close proximity to the site, the requested commercial may be acceptable. Now, with this rezoning application, the applicant has proffered to limit the number of restricted entrances on Martinsburg Pike to 2 and 1 on Stonebridge Boulevard, and limit the maximum number of trips from the sites to 6,303. Now, the entrance locations that are shown on the proffered GDP, I would note, are conceptual in nature. They will require final approval by VDOT and the county. As you can see, this is a snapshot of the GDP proffered. As you can see, the 2 entrances on Martinsburg Pike, and then the right-in on Stonebridge Boulevard, along with the full entrance on Stonebridge Boulevard. The applicant has also proffered a 10-foot right-of-way dedication for Martinsburg Pike, as well as corridor enhancements such as a split rail fence and increased parking setbacks. And there's also a monetary contribution of 10 cents per building square foot for fire and rescue. Now, the Planning Commission held a public hearing at their June 15th meeting, and they did recommend approval. So tonight, following the public hearing, staff is seeking a decision from the board on this requested rezoning. I would be glad to answer any questions, and Mr. Gary Oates is here on behalf of the application.
Questions for Ms. Perkins? Mr. Lofton?
Questions for Mr. Oates, probably?
Okay. Questions for Ms. Perkins? Anyone? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Oates, sir?
Good evening, Supervisors. Gary Oates, Gray Wolf, here to answer any questions, sir.
Sir, Mr. Oates.
Yes, sir.
I notice in the application here, you're stating that this new rezoning, based upon what the expected uses would be, that the site would generate a lower volume of 5,572 trips per day if developed with the mix that you want. But yet you want to cling to the 6,303 that would be generated if it were at its current zoning. So why do you want to hold on to that, and would you be willing to lower that?
Well, the 6,300 is if restaurants, and that was the only use, went on that property, which is allowed under M1. And that's the maximum number of traffic that could be generated. Under B2, they're still allowed as the use of restaurants. The reason we're looking to rezone this to B2, though, is to allow other uses such as hotels, gas station, maybe something along the lines of pharmacy, and they have less traffic associated with them than what a restaurant does, say a McDonald's. So by rezoning to B2, it allows us to allow other uses in there that potentially could have less traffic. However, if all the users that come there in the end are restaurants still, that's why we stuck with the 6,300.
Okay, then there's my question, because I couldn't figure out why, if we wanted to change the use, are we still clinging to the maximum trips based on the old zoning and not the new? So you're saying that the mix may not occur, that it could be generally restaurants?
Still may be all restaurants. However, interest in the property that's come thus far, there's only been one restaurant interested, and the other uses are not. So that's why we are looking at the B2 to allow some other less intensive uses in there, such as a hotel or.
Okay, so there's still a possibility that the uses may generate up to 6,300?
Yes, sir. If it turns out to be a bunch of steakhouses or fast food restaurants or something like that, it could still be that number.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for Mr. Oates? Anyone? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning this rezoning application 04-16? Anyone at all? Anyone? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Mrs. Stonewall.
Yes, sir. I would like to make recommendation of approval for rezoning number 04-16, please.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Is there any further discussion? Anyone? Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. Bring us to a public hearing for rezoning 05-16 for CP Ventures LLC. Ms. Perkins?
Again, thank you. This is an application to rezone 4.98 acres of land from the B2 Business General District and the B3 Industrial Transition District, all to the B2 district with proffers. Now, the property is located on the south side of Martinsburg Pike and the northeast side of Amico Lane along 81. If I can direct you on the screen to your left, we have an aerial that also shows the zoning. For reference, we have Martinsburg Pike, Amico Lane, and Interstate 81. And as you can see, the front portion that fronts Martinsburg Pike is the current B2 portion of the site. That was the former McDonald's. And then you have the B3 in orange, which is the old 84 lumber site. Now, the property is located within the sewer water service area, as well as the limits of the 2030 comprehensive plan, the Northeast Land Use Plan. The Northeast Land Use Plan identifies the property with commercial land uses, and therefore this request to B2 is consistent with the goals of the comprehensive plan. With this rezoning, the applicant has proffered the following. First, there are upgrades to Amico Lane within the limits of the existing right-of-way to the limits of their southeasternmost commercial entrance. They're providing an interparcel connection to the Sheets property, which is currently under development. They will be designing and constructing a sewer pump station with a SCADA system. And they're providing landscaping along the properties fronting Amico Lane. There's a number of existing residential properties that front Amico. And they're providing a monetary contribution of 5 cents per building square foot for fire and rescue. Now, some of the impacts identified in the staff report were first with the upgrades to Amico Lane. There are potential for the site's entrance to be at the northwestern edge of the property, and therefore a significant portion of Amico Lane would not get upgraded with future development. And second, staff pointed out there could be consideration given to preserving some of the existing landscaping along Amico Lane to protect the residential properties across the street. So with that, the Planning Commission held a public hearing at their June 15th meeting, and they did recommend approval. So tonight, following the public hearing, staff is seeking a decision from the board on this requested rezoning. I would be glad to answer questions, and Mr. Evan Wyatt with Greenway Engineering is here on behalf of the application. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Perkins? Anyone?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Supervisor Dunn.
Ms. Perkins, I have in my hand a letter from May 2nd, which was addressed to you. And on page 4 of that letter, you made the request in which you had said that the properties, special attention should be provided to ensure that impacts to adjacent residential properties are considered. I heard the comments. My question to you is, are you satisfied with the response that you got there? You can see this if you need to refresh your memory.
Staff was really referring to landscaping, keeping with the existing landscaping, just really help protect the residential properties across the street. And staff did point out that concern still present in the staff report.
It includes sanitary sewer system, et cetera, so.
The sewer concerns have been addressed. I believe that's the question you're asking. Sanitation authorities now
So that's
happy
met-
with this application.
So that's met your satisfaction?
Yes.
All right, second question. On page 5 of that letter, you made the request, it would be preferable to specify a lump sum monetary contribution rather than a proffered square foot calculation. The response from Greenway was that the proffered monetary contribution based on square footage is consistent with other project proffers accepted by the county. I noticed that Greenway did not answer the question. So do you know approximately what the monetary contribution would be? And do you know why Greenway did not have the courtesy of answering the question?
I'd have to defer that to the applicant. It was just a request to, instead of having to do a calculation, to just do one amount, but that's up to the applicant for the proffer.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for Ms. Perkins? Anyone? Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wyatt, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Evan Wyatt with Greenway Engineering. Before I speak to Mr. Dunn's question, excuse me, one thing I would like to point out from the staff report, the last bulleted item The proffer for the building square footage is actually 10 cents square foot, not 5. That was the original proffer showed 5 cents a square foot, but it was changed with the July 1st proffer, which is before you this evening. Speaking to Mr. Dunn's question specifically, the economic development projects that typically come before the board are viewed as a net positive for fiscal to the community. Historically, as long as I can remember, commercial and industrial projects have offered additional contribution, even though they are cash positive, to offset impacts to fire and rescue. Similar to the application you just previously approved, this is the same. That's generally how they do it. It's not a lump sum. It's based on square footage. A lot of times at the rezoning level, you're not exactly sure of what the maximum square footage of the developed site's going to be. So doing a lump sum is something that's historically not been offered as a voluntary monetary proffer.
Okay, I understand that. My question is, can you give me an idea of approximately what range we're talking about? Because you're coming from an engineering viewpoint, which is fine, on 10 cents per square feet, but not knowing the number of square feet, it's hard to calculate.
The best I can tell you with this particular site, of course, the motivation behind the rezoning is because there is a hotel that is planned to be developed. There's also other pad sites that could generate restaurant or retail space. Typically, a rule of thumb, if you want to try to anticipate a square footage, we usually recommend about 0.2 to 0.2 floor to area ratio per acre. So, you could potentially calculate a value that way, but we don't have a known set maximum square footage on this site, so I can't give you a calculation.
All right.
Other questions, Mr. Wyatt? Yes, sir, Mr. Lofton.
I may have missed it, but has the screening been resolved?
Yeah, I wanted to
Amico.
speak to that. I'm not going to be redundant with what Candace's report said, but one thing that I think is important for the board to know, I'm not really good with the pencil part of this, so I'll just use my laser pointer. But you see there's existing residential land uses along Amico Lane. One of the things we always typically try to do when we have residential adjoining our properties is we offer a neighborhood meeting opportunity, and we did so with this application as well. The meeting was attended by the majority of the property owners along Amico Lane, and we talked about a few things. One of them, of course, they recognize that they are zoned commercially and that there would normally not be a buffer required. But we recommended to them that if they so desired, that it would be the applicant's willingness to do a landscape planning along their property within an easement they would provide us if they so desired to do that. They were receptive to that concept. They all recognized that over time their properties are going to be something else. They know they're already zoned commercially. They were all very excited about the fact that there is sewer that is now going to be installed for land uses along Amico Lane, and they were receptive to the landscaping. They were also pleased that the hotel that's going to be developed is going to be owned by the local developers. So it was a very positive meeting. We also were contacted by phone by Jerry Sales, who owns property but is an absentee property owner, and he was supportive of the application as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, anyone? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning application 05-16? Anyone? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Stonewall.
Since this has come to the Planning Commission, several issues had been resolved, and that was, as Mr. Wyatt pointed out, increasing the fire and rescue contribution from 5 cents to 2 cents, and that was a voluntary part on the owners. The second part were issues of the sanitation authority in having consistency with the SCADA system, and the applicant has addressed those, and I received confirmation back from Mr. Lawrence from the sanitation authority that had been taken care of as well. So with that being said, I would like to make recommendation for the rezoning of 05-16 for CB Ventures LLC.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
A second, is there any discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion carries. That will bring us to a public hearing for the draft update of the 2016-2017 Frederick County Primary and Interstate Road Improvement Plans. This is going to be a joint public hearing between the Virginia Department of Transportation and the Board of Supervisors for the County of Frederick, Virginia, in accordance with Section 33.2-331 of the Code of Virginia, and will conduct a joint public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive public comment on the proposed 6-year plan for secondary roads for fiscal years 2017 through 2022 in Frederick County, and on the secondary system construction budget for fiscal year 2017. Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you noted, we do have our public hearing tonight for our annual update of the interstate primary and secondary plans. Most key in terms of state code of those is the secondary plan. The interstate and primary plans are plans that Frederick County has for many years now opted to do to make sure the VDOT remains fully aware of our priorities. With that, I will begin with the Interstate Road Improvement Plan, which, as I'm sure I note every year, having only one interstate in Frederick County does not get terribly complicated. I will note that Exit 310 remains noted on there. That may raise eyebrows because that's obviously a project that's ongoing and well into progress right now. However, it's important to remember that the work that's being right now is really phase one of a 3-phase interstate interchange improvement. So even once the current project is done, 310 is going to remain on there as an ongoing concern as we move toward the future Cloverleaf, full Cloverleaf interchange. Moving on the primary road improvement plan, there have been some updates to this based on Winchester Frederick County MPO modeling. Specifically, items 4 and items 5A and 5B have been added. Those are Route 7 and Route 50 on the east and west side of town, eastern and western portions of the county, rather, where the modeling calls for those roadways to be improved to 6 lanes. You have areas where it's nearly there, but in terms of actually being fully implemented per the modeling, that's not there. So as those are primary facilities, we're making sure that we call that out. And finally, moving on to the secondary road improvement plan. First, I begin with the Frederick County major road improvement projects. Top of that list remains Sulphur Springs Road. You may recall that when I came last year, we were under the impression that Sulphur Springs Road was fully funded. However, cost estimates have been updated, and it is no longer fully funded. That's likely going to be coming forward to you from your Transportation Committee as one of your several smart scale applications for this coming session, which actually I'm going on Friday to get my credentials to start entering those applications. So those are going to be coming before you quite soon. Beyond that, Redbud Road, of course, remains a concern. And frankly, a growing concern as we progress with our revenue sharing project of Snowden Bridge Boulevard, which now gives us a place to realign Redbud Road 2, which is going to be very important as we go forward. And of course, you also have our revenue sharing projects on there and a number of more minor VDOT projects. Moving on, while it's probably the smallest part of our overall actual capital transportation project, it does continue with our citizens to be one of the most key for many impacted people in our county, and that is the hard surface road improvement projects. To begin with the scheduled list, I would note that we did perform a re-ranking of projects this year. Because we were able to promote a project, but also because it had been a little while since we had done a re-ranking. So we followed your adopted policy in that ranking process and promoted Hollow Road, which that was not going to be a shock to anybody. That was at the top of the unscheduled list before. It remained at the top with the re-ranking this year, so that came forward. You may note that during the board's transportation forum that was held over the winter, Hollow Road got a lot of attention, as did Laurel Grove Road, which is also already on the scheduled list. So we're progressing through those things. One item that was added to the document was a note at the bottom of that table that does point out that these scheduling of projects are based upon VDOT revenue projections. Like many types of projections that we do in our planning and in our various work, those are they're estimates, they're expectations. So we did add that note to make it more clear to folks who may read the plan that should VDOT's projections change, that can affect projects. So we tried to clarify that a little better. Moving on to the unscheduled, we still have 21 projects on the unscheduled list. As I noted earlier, we did perform the re-ranking, so there was a little bit of moving around, really not significant except in the case of Sir John's Road. I would note that Sir John's Road, Shockeysville Road, and Mount Olive Road had previously not been ranked. They were added between the time when we had last done a re-ranking of projects and this time. So this was expected that as they actually got scored, there would be some movement. So Sir John's Road moved from the bottom of the list up to number 12 based on your adopted scoring criteria. However, Shockeysville Road and Mount Olive Road do remain at the bottom of the list. However, they're now there not just because they've been added since the most recent re-ranking of projects, but because that's where their score has placed them. With that, I would note that the Transportation Committee considered this item on June 20th, and the Planning Commission considered it on July 6th. Both have recommended approval. And of course, as you noted, this is a public hearing, and I can take any questions you may have. We do have VDOT staff here in the form of Mr. Cliff Balderson and Mr. Steve Dameron as well, if you have questions for VDOT.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Mr. Bishop? Anyone?
Just have one question, Mr. Chairman. We've had this conversation before, but on Greenwood,
yes, sir.
Sulphur Spring and Sensony, is there any consideration for possibly using that to get from Sensony Road to Route 50 as opposed to having to go through the neighborhoods that it currently are doing? Is that considered on the, consideration for a year, 2 years, 3 years out? It's not a consideration at all. Any comments would be fine.
In terms of our overall Eastern Road Plan, the VDOT...
It's the connector between the two, which currently goes through that community.
Yes, of
And
course.
it's looking as an option to put it on Greenwood or someplace else, so you don't have that. Go ahead.
I'm going to answer, and I'll see if I get to... I apologize if I don't quite hone in, but you can correct me, of course. Basically, with our Eastern Road Plan right now, you have the Channing Drive extension, which is supposed to come all the way from where it currently connects with Sensony on down to a connection with Sulphur Springs, which VDOT's plans actually account for. We know that Channing Drive intersection with Sulphur Springs Road is fairly far into the future. However, all the way back to the Jerry Kopp days when we were talking about this project, the plan has always been to go ahead and put in the underground work and things like that that make implementing that intersection once it takes place more cost effective in terms of signalization and things like that. And of course, Channing Drive, once again, per your Eastern Road Plan, is eventually supposed to go on forward and will come out now next to the GSA site between Perry Engineering and where we're expecting the FBI records complex to be. So there's that planning that takes place in terms of considering that for this project. Am I answering your question?
You are. I'm just taking a look at the longer-term situation, and it is how to address that if there is a landowner that, for whatever reason, decides that he wants to keep his land and not allow either easement on his property or easement on the very border of his property or something of that nature. So it's just the question of a possible alternative if the current plan is held up because the lender has the right to say, thank you, but I want to keep my land.
I'm not aware of any situation like that that has arisen because VDOT's been actually actively working on the right-of-way acquisition for some time now.
Potentially continue forward without a problem.
Without hiccup.
Okay,
Yeah, I
thank
don't
you.
expect a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Other questions for Mr. Bishop? Anyone? Thank you, sir. Have anything you wanted to add, Mr. Baldridge? All right, so this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning the 2016-2017 update? Anyone at all? Anyone? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. We're looking for an adoption of the plan.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lofton.
I would recommend that we approve the draft update of the 2016-2017 Frederick County Primary and Interstate Road Improvement Plans to be forwarded to the Commonwealth Transportation Board for consideration.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion?
Sorry. Do I need to amend that?
Sorry, Mr. Bishop, help us out if you need to.
I apologize for jumping in, but you only noted the interstate and primary and did not mention the secondary plan.
Oh, you're right. I apologize. So I would include the secondary.
Second concur.
Second.
Second concurs. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would. Go ahead.
I was noticing in our agenda, there's 3 separate resolutions which cover each one. So I don't know whether we can combine them or we do all 3 of them.
I think you can make a motion to approve all 3 resolutions at one time. I don't see any reason why you couldn't.
I'm sorry, that was my intent, but you're right.
I would support that.
Okay.
The motion is to adopt the 3 resolutions to approve the current update of the 16-17.
The second agrees.
And the second concurs. So is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I would just like to make a comment that I certainly don't want to give anyone out there any false hopes that this is going to take place as is going to be submitted. As Mr. Bishop has pointed out, it is contingent upon funds received by the state and then allocated for these projects. And this is certainly not a commitment to make sure that these are done in the time frame with which they are stated on these resolutions. Just want everybody to know that, again, this is looking forward, trying to make sure we get things in the pipeline and trying to give the state some direction into what we'd like to have done first, but it's in no way commits us or the state to make it within these timeframes. I wish it could be shorter. I really do. And I think that's one of the things that we need to work with our legislators on is trying to get more funds in to the transportation coffers so that we can actually shorten the time that people see that these projects come to fruition. Thank you.
As well.
Mr. Chairman, took the words right out of my mouth. Funding is important, and I'd like to, this just kind of comes on the tail end, but I'd like to see this board send a letter of resolution to our state representatives that we'd like for them to really work very hard to see if they couldn't do something about expanding the funding that the state is currently using now to support these roads. A lot of the roads that are not on schedule have been there for eons, and we need to do something about that. And as representatives of your districts, I'm sure you get the same telephone calls I do, and it would be something that we could do as a group that would show that we're attempting to let the state know that we feel this is important to our citizens. And so I'd like to tag that on, not necessarily to the motion, but I'd like to come back to that and see if we can't get a consensus on doing that.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, along the same lines of transportation, I would concur with what Mr. Wells had to say. In my district, you have situations where VDOT has gone and built roads, have grassy malls either between roads or at the corners, and then they don't cut them. So in my district right now, There are private citizens that are cutting roads based upon what the state has put in. So if the state wants to build a road and they want to put grass, they need to either account for their own cutting, or they need to just blacktop it and leave it alone. But their improvement, quote unquote, in my opinion, has been detrimental, not positive. When you have grass that grows 2 feet tall, it incurs site issues, et cetera. So along with what Mr. Wells has to say, I would just encourage VDOT to go and do roads that not only look pleasing, but are functional. Private citizens should not have to cut public roads, or the grass on public roads. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? All right. So, Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye and the motion carries. Will bring us to a request for a work session with the Planning Commission. You had a series of dates. Hope everyone checked their calendars and are prepared to respond. Maybe we can start with the dates that don't work, and that one for me would be August the 16th. I can't make the August 16th. I can make any of the others.
Mr. Chair, the board already has an engagement on August 23rd, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, then. did
You
I
already have a
misread it?
meeting.
I'm sure it's in my agenda. It is.
Do you say the board Madam
Oh, it's
Administrator?
noon, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Scratch that.
Scratch which
You
one?
don't have a noon engagement, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
So the noon request has been fixed.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we'll move on. Never mind.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to, if you cannot do the 16th, I'd like to either propose the 17th or the 18th. The 3 following dates will be very difficult for me.
Yes, well, I think that we've already resolved that issue prior to and got included in our agenda by mistake.
No, what I'm saying is I apologize, I'm interjected myself and it was incorrect. I was assuming it was an evening meeting and you had a conflict on the 23rd, but you do not have a conflict if it's a noon meeting.
No, it's in the.
We're still trying to set up a meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
so the 16th is out for me. If you would repeat your dates that don't work for you, Mr. Dunn, someone's
I would
recording.
prefer not to do it on August 23, 24, or 25.
Okay, so that leaves 17 and 18. Others? Everybody okay on 17 and 18?
Okay.
So it looks like, Ms. Garten, you can have your choice of those two.
17?
17? Okay. Everybody happy? We'll send a notice out.
Okay.
Okay, I think that brings us to the portion of our meeting that we reserve for comments from anyone on any subject. Would anyone like to share? Ms. Gokenauer.
Good evening. I'm Patsy Gokenauer, Red Bud District, and my comments this evening deal with the Frederick County government to ensure an adequate water supply to the present day and future residents of Frederick County. Without water, as you well know, everything that's been discussed this evening will be to no avail. A month ago, I attended Red Bud District's comprehension plan meeting, and it was poorly attended, but the 5 who made the comments were very concerned about water. And these questions could not be answered, adequately answered by the planning staff that was there. So I know that in the past, we've had our goals. I know like in 1990, that we talked about 2020, and it seemed so far ahead. But in the Winchester Star several months ago, there was an article, and it stated that as we as the community would be using more water than we could produce. So just in commenting here that God as our Creator gave us the greatest gift, water. For without water, there is no life. And in 1956, Congress voted that our national motto, "In God We Trust." So my question here this evening is, can the community of Winchester, Frederick County trust their local governing bodies to ensure life-giving water, that there will be life-giving water? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone? All right, we'll move forward. Supervisors' comments.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hodges?
I'm going to give a liaison report here. At the Extension Leadership Council meeting, a lot of things are interesting there, but one thing came up that I'd like to share with everyone, that anyone who has not been to the Alson H. Smith Jr. Agriculture Research and Extension Center located on Reliance Road, off Middle Road, that there will be an open house for community members to attend and learn more about the research and extension work occurring locally and across the Commonwealth within tree fruit and grape growing industries. That will occur on Saturday, August 13th from 1 to 5 p.m., again at the Agriculture Research Center located at 595 Laurel Grove Road. Anyone who has not been there has really missed an opportunity to see a very, very, I think, important part of Frederick County and actually to the agricultural community in the Commonwealth. So if you have not been there, or if you've been there, go back out, because they always have new programs that they're exploring, new work that they're doing, and I think it's well worth your time to go through there and see all the progress that's being made in agriculture. Thank
Really interesting research going on out there.
Yes, it is. If I may, one other comment?
Please, sir.
Say amen to the revenue sharing agreement that we approved tonight for Tevin Street and I-81 Bridge. It's been a long time coming, and I know that I, for one, am certainly happy for staff working with the developers and VDOT for your patience to make sure that we finally got something agreed to, and now we can move forward full speed with that project, because like I said, it's been a long time coming, and it's certainly needed. And so thanks staff and VDOT for all their hard work and bringing that to fruition.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Supervisor Fisher.
Mr. Chairman and board members, an issue that's been brought to my attention on the last 6 months or a year has to deal with some of the accessory uses maybe into our M1 zoning. And back in 2009, the board didn't approve it's like recreational uses. I think back then it was a dog kennel, wasn't it, Ms. Perkins?
Training.
Dog training facility. I would be interested to see maybe during our work session with the Planning Commission, just for a brief discussion, maybe where this thing should be sent back to DRRC for rediscussion, you're looking into it. I've got one violation in my district, and I've got some other folks that want to do it, and at least they had the courtesy to ask before they went too far. But it seems to me there ought to be some way to include some of these recreational uses in our M1 zoning. And again, I want to protect the M1 zoning, but I wonder if we could get maybe a consensus of the board to maybe just as a brief topic, because I see we've got 4 amendments to the comp plan to take, and I'm sure that's going to fill us up for the work session, but perhaps just a short discussion to see if the board and the Planning Commission would agree to send this back to the Development Review Committee and just rehash it and see if it would be some way to accommodate this, because there's a number of requests that I've had for that.
I think it'd be good. I mean,
Be fine.
I agree.
the OM allows a range of uses, but it's not really being used. So, you know, we may be able to look at those, see if we can figure out why it's not being used.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Other comments? Anyone?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Lake Frederick is in my district. The light is in Clark County. 522 and the intersection have gotten many telephone calls from residents there prior to the tragic accident that occurred several weeks ago. But it certainly highlighted the problem that's there. A lot of these folks have contacted VDOT, and then they contact me to let me know what I might be able to do. Pretty much my hands are tied, other than to do the same thing they're doing, to contact VDOT. And I just want to go on record that if there's any way possible that we can get those lights functioning, rather than just blinking lights, I think it would be a great move. This community is expanding rapidly. They now have a public restaurant there. Traffic, I know in the past hasn't met the qualifications. If you haven't been out there, and I know VDOT has, but go out to Lake Frederick. It is booming with new house development, townhouse development, and so forth. So I would like to see, on behalf of my constituents, I'm going to go on record that I would like to see those lights functioning as red, green, and caution as soon as we can possibly do that.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
The only other comment I would make is that we've had issues since Saturday with the Anderson Water Treatment Plant, and I've spoken with Mr. Lawrence today. Hopefully, everything will be back up and running tomorrow, and we should be back to normal.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I know I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to, you know me. But I happened to be at that intersection just seconds before that accident occurred. And my hat's off to our sheriff and our deputies for all the issues they have to deal with, because a lot of the stuff they got to deal with are people who are not paying attention to what they're doing.
I agree.
They're flashing red lights there. I had a fatality in my district years ago down at Clydesdale, and it was a sad day in Bedrock, I will tell you. But when people violate stop signs and flashing red lights and run them, because the car that I believe was involved in that accident almost got me. Because I had some friends behind me, and they said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "No, but I saw them." I weaved, and, I don't know if folks are using their electronic stuff, texting on the phone, but I wish they would take those phones and put them in the trunk, because there are flashing red lights there, and I know that I've talked to VDOT in the past about it. That whole thing's a debacle in a way, and I think Mr. Balderson will confirm this, that the developer made a mistake way back, even though it was proffered, and they installed the lights when they weren't needed, and they've been flashing for years down there. But I think, with VDOT running warrants on it again, if it's needed to put it in operation. But unfortunately, I don't believe what happened the other day would have been avoided by a stoplight, because they're already flashing red lights. And
I agree with you.
My hat's off to the sheriff's department and their deputies for trying to enforce some of the driving violations that go on. And I don't know what the answer is. I wish I did, because it does cost people their lives, and it's a sad day when that happens.
I couldn't agree with you more about it's a driver issue, but I do think that a red light that is stopped on red has a little bit more influence than a red light that's flashing, because you see a caution light, you see a red light, and you go, I just slow down for that. If it's a red light, I understand. I know what you're supposed to do. I always just say, when I see folks doing that, the rules don't apply to me. I just go on and go through them. That's what they say. But I'm hoping that maybe changing it and doing that might have some significant influence on preventing more accidents at that intersection, although they've been limited. I know there haven't been a lot, but it's a major highway, the traffic's picking up on that, and it's going to be a major intersection with all the homes. There's been 400 homes built in there in the last year. So that's a lot of traffic coming out of there now. And I must say it's elderly traffic like me. So, okay.
Anyone else? Supervisor Fisher.
Move for adjournment, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to adjourn. Second? Second. All those in favor, aye? Aye. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Oh, shoot, I didn't get the second.